All right, so I'm gonna remember that you still have to make your project every time you start a brand new project. Like we did the title sequence, that was one project. Now we're doing the product, that's another project. You make a new project, and then every time you come in after that, you set your project before even opening. So I haven't opened up anything here, I've just set my project. And then you can go to open, and then you can open up your stuff. Okay, so this is the one I did from the Monday, Wednesday class. I do have some differences in each one, remember? So if I model something one way here, when I show it to them, I'm going to try to change it up just so you have some differences in there. So for theirs, I did this one here. And then I also showed how to make one that's open if you want to make one that's open, okay? So that's what I wanted to cover today, was just how to make one that's open and how to make like some sort of cream or whatever if you wanted to add that into your shot. So I'm just going to hide all of this stuff. I grab everything, I make a new layer, I just call this stuff, and then we just hide it. I would label it better. My file. All right, so it starts off the exact same way. So we started off with a cylinder before. We make it roughly the dimensions of what we want to use. So something like that, let's say, is a pretty good dimension as far as height, as far as width goes. And then I'm going to add 50 divisions. I'm going to take my caps to 0. And then I'm just going to model this like it would be if it had a lip on it. Now I'm actually going to go a little bit lower. This is just another way to kind of model stuff. Okay, so the way I showed it last time is we can add subdivisions and we can just like scale things in, right? That's how I showed doing it last time. This way I can grab this face, and under the edit mesh I can go to extrude. Oops, don't do that. And do my offset. And then extrude again. And then pull it up. Okay, so instead of me grabbing individual edges and scaling them in, I can just do a set of extrusions and extrude it up. Okay, so that's another way that sometimes I will work also. Now for this container, what I want to do is I want this to be an empty container with threads around it. Okay, so what I do is I delete the top of this. So now it's like a hollow container. Then what I can do is take that and do an extrude on it, and then just adjust the thickness. So that looks pretty good. And then I'll go to Mesh Tool or Mesh Display and reverse it so it doesn't go black. And there we go. So now I have a container that it looks like it has some thickness to it. I still put in my bevels, so I double click, shift double click, shift, oops, wrong one. Shift double click that, shift double click this, shift double click that. All right, down here I'll have to grab the face, so I'll make sure I do that. Go to Mesh Tool or Edit Mesh, go to Bevel, set that down lower, set that to 2, that looks good. Okay, so that looks pretty decent. Now I'll grab this face and that face and do another bevel on it. There we go. All right, so that looks like a pretty decent cream. Now in order to get the threads on it, I'm going to go to Create Polygons, and there's a primitive called Helix, and Helix is like a thread, except it's going to come in not looking like a thread at all, like that. And then I'll tweak some of my settings in order to get it to look like a thread. So over here in its settings, I'm going to go to the height, and I'm going to shrink the height. Okay, so now it doesn't look like that at all. I'm going to go to my radius, and I'll shrink that. I'll go to my width, and I'll shrink that. Oops, not the width. I think the height needs to go up a little bit more. There we go. The radius will go down more, 0.05, 0.02. That's good. That's good. Okay. Then I'll go to my width, and I'll just pull this up a little bit. And then I'll move this down. And then I'll make the width a little bit more. And eventually I'll have to actually just type it in. Too much. 3.75 looks good. Okay, so now it looks like I actually have threads on this thing. Now if I came in close to this end, you'll see that obviously that doesn't look like a thread. I could model it and make it look like a thread, but it's probably going to be on the back of my surface, and if it's not, I'll rotate it so it is, so I don't need to worry about it. Okay. If this was something more than just these, like this is 3 loops, I could go over here and make like 20 coils if I wanted to and have more coils. 3 is actually the perfect amount for this type of thing. Okay, so there's that. So now I'm going to make a lid using the same exact method. I'm going to go to create polygon cylinder. I'm going to roughly scale this up to be about the same size. Like that. I'm going to add 50 divisions here, no caps. I'm going to shrink it down so I get the height of it. And keeping in mind that I have to make sure that I include where these threads are going to be. So it's going to be like that. I couldn't have this thing being like that. That wouldn't make sense at all. So like that seems like a good dimension. All right. So now I'm going to go to my face here. I'm going to extrude it and use my offset, pull it down. I can switch to the top view and kind of eyeball it. Most of the time you're never really going to see whether or not they're exact. Like if I look at this from the top view, they might be off, like there's no way these could fit. But as long as it looks like it's good enough, then that's all that matters. Extrude again, pull this up. There we go. Okay, so now I have that. Now here's how I cheat, is I take this thing and I duplicate it and just shove that up there. And then that'll give me a good indication as to, okay, this is obviously not going to fit that. So I'm going to go back into my history, and this first extrusion I did was the width of that. So if I go to that one and I scroll down to thickness or offset, then I can start to play with this. 0.25, 0.22, 0.20. That looks good. Okay. And then I can just take that and move it up a little bit more. Good. And then I'll just add bevels. So you see the process is the same. I haven't done anything radically different from what we talked about last time. Face, face. I'm going to do these faces separately because I want this one to have a little bit more roundness to it. There we go. And then this one will have a little bit less roundness to it. All right, there we go. Now, the threads are perfectly lined up. They actually wouldn't fit together. It doesn't matter, okay? Because we're not going to like put it together. No one's going to run this through a microscope or anything. All right, so there's my lid and there's my bottom. Fancy up the top a little bit. Maybe I'll add just a little extrusion here and extrude it again and just push it down. There we go. And then even though it's tiny, I still add little bevels because those bevels really add to the detail of your surface to make it look realistic. Grab this one, add a little bevel. There we go. Cool. Okay, so now it looks more like a cream jar inside there. Now let's say I wanted to actually add some sort of cream or something inside the jar, because otherwise it's an empty jar and it looks weird. So I'm going to take this and just push this away. Now this is a trick that I'll do just to kind of, I want to move this out of the way, but I don't just grab it randomly and move it, because eventually I want to get it back to this exact spot. Okay, so if I look at the translate Z here, you see how it's at 0? So if I move this and translate Z, all I have to do is go back to this and set it to 0, and it just jumps right back. Okay, I could also throw it on a layer and hide it, whatever, but just throw it over there. All right, so I'm going to go to, let's check that. Okay, that's good. I'm going to go to create a polygon cylinder. I'm going to pull it up here. I'm going to make 50 divisions there. Let me scale it up so it fits. Let me shrink it down so it fits. That looks good. Now, on the other one, I deleted the caps. I went to 0 here. I'm not going to do that with this one because I need the divisions there. I need something there so that I can push and pull and tweak this. So I'm going to add like 10 divisions here. The more divisions I have, the more detail I can add to the shape of this. So if it's something that's a very detailed kind of creamy lumpy thing, maybe I want to add like 30 here, or maybe I'd want to add 10, okay? Depending on what you want to do. Now I really don't need the stuff below this. Like there's no point in having all of the stuff that's inside here because we're not going to see it. Unless it's like a clear liquid cream or something, okay? So I'm going to avoid using a clear liquid cream just to keep everything simple. And I'm just going to delete all that stuff underneath. So I basically just have this platform that's just like that. Okay. So now what I need to do is I'm going to go to Vertex, and I'm going to click on a vertex. Now if I just grab this and move it, that's going to look weird. Okay. Remember we have that soft select button, B. So if I hit B, it turns this all yellow. If I hold B and use my middle mouse, it lets me define an area. And then I can start to tweak what this is looking like. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do, except I'm not going to go to vertex. I'm going to go to edge, and I'm going to shrink this down to something like that. And I'm just going to grab some random edges like this. Oops, a little bit more on the soft select, like that. There we go. And I'll just grab some more random edges. And the little trick you can do is if you click on one edge and then go down the line, shift double click on this other edge, it'll select all the edges between. So it's kind of a neat way to grab that. This, that.
Shift, double click?
Yep. So I grab that one, hold down shift, double click the one down the line, and then I can grab that.
Now, would there be a way to do that with like a bump map?
You could do that with a bump map too.
Would it look nice, or would it
I think this way would probably be better, just because we have so little divisions in the rest of the surface or the rest of the scene that we can kind of get away with that. If this was something further out, I probably would want to use a bump, but especially when we're looking at it, let's say like this, the bump would not capture this kind of stuff, right? The other way that I can do this, because right now I'm basically just grabbing edges and pulling them up, okay, which is neat and it's okay, it works. But there's other ways we can do this. Under the mesh tools, there are sculpting tools. And what these allow us to do is with a paintbrush, we can actually pull up pieces of our geometry. So it's like just like Photoshop, where you just like sculpt it and it'll pull up those pieces. So if I go to my Sculpt tool and I double click to bring the options up, display for me, I have wireframe turned off, so you can turn it on or off if you need to see it. I usually need to go in here and change the size. Right now my brush you cannot see. It's set to 25, so I have this big huge 25 unit brush. So I'm going to shrink this down to like 0.2, and then we can see the actual brush. The strength of this is 15, meaning it's going to pull it up 15 units, which is way too much for this little cream container. So I'll set that to 0.05. And now as I click and drag, I was probably a little bit too soft on that, 0.15. And as I click and drag, I'm pulling up pieces of the surface. Okay, so I can very quickly, again, kind of create that creamy look to this gel. I could also hold down Shift, and this will smooth stuff out. So clicking and dragging makes it go up. Shift clicking and dragging smooths it out. And then Alt clicking and dragging, oops, that spins me around. Sorry, Control clicking and dragging pushes us down. Okay, so we can do this a couple different ways. I could also maybe make this a little bit more apparent just so we can see. Woo, that's way too much. And if you had a tablet would actually read the pressure of the tablet as what we're doing. There we go. So that should be good. And then I can do, go back to the Move tool and just hit 3. And when I do that, it'll kind of smooth out the rest of that. Okay, so now it looks like I have some sort of cream inside of this jar, which is, you know, pretty neat how that works. Yes, ma'am.
How do you edit the size of your soft selection?
You hold B. Let me go to my stuff here. So if I grab one of my pieces here, I hold B, and then you use the middle mouse button and just click and drag to the right. Okay. And that'll make that bigger or smaller. I could also go into, remember the helix that we used for the threads? I can also make a helix right here next to this. And I'm going to really down-res this. I'm going to take this to like, maybe less than that, like 10 this way and 6 that way. And that should be good. All right, so I did that. Now watch what I can do with this is if I go in here and I start grabbing these and start scaling this up, maybe flattening that a little bit. And I'm going to grab this. I'm going to scale that down, push that in. And I'm going to grab this and I'm going to scale that down. Push that there, and then when I hit 3, you see how now we kind of have like this dollopy type thing.
Oh my god, I love that.
Okay, now it obviously needs more work. That's like too perfect of a dollop. So we would just go in here and just grab some of these and just kind of push and pull. I think I need a division here. So I'm going to go to my edge loops and add an edge loop. And I can just pull that out. Now, as you model stuff, remember what you're going to be seeing. When we do this specific assignment, we're not rendering out like a 360 of it. We're rendering out a still from one position. Okay? So as we do this, we can kind of focus on what does the front of this look like and kind of ignore what the back is doing. Okay? To a point. So I can tweak this and modify this and do whatever, to get that dollop to look the way I want that dollop to look. Okay? Now there's a very fine line between a dollop of cream and a pile of dog poop. I don't think I've hit it yet. There we go. Okay, so now the other thing I can do, let me delete that one. Because there's other ways that we can do all of this kind of stuff. Let me go to a cylinder. Yes. And I'm going to go to my caps off. I'm going to go to my division 6. I lower all my divisions because I don't want to have a lot of divisions on this stuff, because as I work, if I have too many divisions, it becomes very hard to keep it nice and smooth, which is what that dollop would have. So I did that. Now watch how I can go to my curve tool. Where are you at? Curve tools. And I'm going to go to a CV curve tool. There's also a Bezier curve tool, which is something like Illustrator, Photoshop-y. Works the same way. I like the CV curve tool. So I'm going to go here, and I'm just basically going to draw out what I want this dollop to do. So I'm going to say I want you to kind of curve around like this. Like that. Okay? Now it's perfectly flat, so I'll go into the vertices here. I'll grab this one and pull it up. And then I'll grab the next one, pull it up. And I can use my soft select too to help me select things. I do have to make sure it doesn't select other points inside here I don't want selected. Where's the next one? 3. One of these points, it gets confusing when you have so many points clustered on top of each other, but it'll get easier. Once you start separating them, you'll see where they're at. Okay. Alright, so let's say something like this. That's good. Alright, so I'm going to take this shape and I'm going to extrude it along this path. Okay, so it's basically going to take this shape and go and make a little dollop. So I'm going to put this at the very bottom of it, so right where this thing is. So I can just move it and rotate it. I'm going to center pivot it and then rotate it. There we go. Scale it down. Should be good. Enough. There we go. Alright, so let's see if this works. So I'm going to grab this face here, shift click this path, and then under Edit Mesh, I'm going to extrude it. And in the extrude options, there's a method to say I want to use the selected curve. So now when I extrude this, you can see how it went the path of that curve. Now what it doesn't have right now is enough divisions to make up this shape. So we get this weird funky shape. Now as I go to divisions here and start cranking this up, you'll see how it's forming that little dollopy kind of shape. And then the neat thing about this too is that there's actually a taper. So I can taper this, and now I actually have this kind of thing coming up to a little point at the top of it.
It's a snake.
It is. And then I could grab that original curve that's here and center pivot that, and I could scale that original curve in to create more of that dollopy kind of shape. Something like that. Okay? Or use this as my base to start tweaking what I want this to look like. Yep.
It is a fine line.
Yes. Okay. So more tweaking on this, and we can really customize what this shape is looking like. A lot of this you want to look at reference for what these things look like and not just kind of eyeball it. Why would that come up? There you go. That looks disgusting. There you go. So you can do stuff like this too. So if you had, our assignment is we're doing 3 products, okay? But you can take your same product and you could duplicate it and have 2 of them. That doesn't count for 2, that counts for 1. But you can add more in there. So you could have like 5 of these things, and then in those 5, this one is like this it looks like coconut or something here, and then this one might be strawberry. So just by you adjusting your texture to be yellows and reds, you now have two different products, even though they're not really different products. Okay? So here's some more like hair color or something. There we go. So there's like a little glob of conditioner, I guess. All right. So you want to look at reference. You want to see what things look like. There's another one. So that you get an idea of what things are looking like when you do it. Oh, I just had it too. Come on. Moose. Moose hair. I'm sure I'm going to pull some crazy stuff with moose hair. Especially since I spelled it wrong.
That you spelled all that.
Yeah. And I think there's two S's in moose.
Why?
There we go. That's what I wanted to see. Okay. So something like that is definitely more of what we would want if we were doing like moose. We would find something for hair gel. If you're at home and you have hair gel or mousse or anything, you can snap a picture with your phone, and that is good enough as reference. You don't need to get amused by Google while you're trying to find reference. Okay. So as you work on this stuff, think about all these extra things that you could add to your scene. Okay. Our end product of this is going to be a magazine ad. So we're not going to be going landscape with this. We're going to be going portrait. All right. So think about your composition too. Let me grab all of this stuff here. And I'm just going to start grouping some things. Let me reset this to 0. And I'm going to group the lid. I'm going to center pivot the lid.
Are you going to want all three of our products in like one magazine?
Yes. It's going to be just like one little magazine ad for your product is what it is.
All right, okay, so we got to make the same product?
Well, you're making the same product line, right? Same brand, yes, thank you. All right, so something like that.
So are you gonna make background stuff for them too?
We're gonna add a background into it, yeah. But it's gonna be, we're gonna try to keep it pretty plain as to what we do, like solid colors. So there's this. So I'm gonna take all this stuff and I'm gonna group all of this, and this will be my green. I'm just gonna delete that thing. Just don't talk about that. All right. So here's all my other stuff, and then now I see this is too small. So because it's grouped, I can just scale it up, okay, or move it or whatever. So as I look at this, I want to kind of start composing what this is going to look like. I have so many of these things just laying around. I don't need that one anymore. There we go. Okay. So I want to scale this up, move that up a little bit more. It's too big. I want to consider what my composition is going to be. So looking at this, I have basically like two small items and then a bigger one. So do I want to do like something like this inside there? Yeah, that might not look right. Something like this? No. Maybe I want to add another bottle that's kind of like medium sized, or a bigger bottle. Okay. So looking at all of that, you have to consider if you had a huge bottle like this, not that you would, that's a ridiculous size, to fit this on there and these, you can't really find a good composition for that. Okay. So just be mindful of this as you're working. We can always adjust it, but you may say, hey, I want to add something else in there to kind of bring that composition together instead of having a bunch of smaller items inside there. Maybe you want to add a something that's like this big right next to it, just to kind of balance out the composition. And then you can have this here, and then this one up front. I'll just hide this guy because I don't need him right now. So you see how I can play with the composition of how I want this layout to happen. Or maybe these guys are in front and that guy's in back. That looks weird, like that. Or maybe I have something like this, like that. Okay? So you want to be aware of it now. We're not rendering this out right now, but we have to be aware of it so that as we start building our stuff, we're not building things that are just really out of scale with each other. Okay? All right. So that's it. I just wanted to show you those couple extra things as you're working. Remember to save your stuff often, set your project, and we'll just keep at it.